and welcome back to the Creator Circle. I'm your host, Lucy, and today we are actually going to do something a little bit different, and I'll dive into why that is in a second. But it's just going to be me, and like I said, we're going to be doing something different. Today, we're actually going to be talking about a film that I saw recently called Sound of Freedom. If you haven't heard of it, or if you've been living under a rock for the past couple of weeks, I guess, then stick around to hear more and find out just how amazing this film is and why you really need to check it out. So, to give backstory as to why we're doing this for this episode as opposed to talking to one of our regular guests, if you've been here for a while or if you've been following the show from the start, if you watched our first episode, we talk about why we started the show in the first place, which is to give other creators the space to share their work, their perspective, and insight into how they think art makes the world a better place. And so, obviously, a big part of that is giving other creators this space to speak and to be heard, which is an important part of what I want to do with this show. But the other important thing and driving factor behind the creation of the show is, of course, the idea that art makes the world a better place. Again, in the first episode, I went into a lot more detail about why I believe that, what led me to believe that. And if you want to know more, if you want to dive deeper into that, go back and check out episode 1. But you get the gist. The concept that I'm getting at is that I believe that art makes the world a better place, and art of all kinds. So that would include filmmaking, and that takes us back to the topic of today's conversation, which is a new film, Sound of Freedom. Again, if you've been living under a rock and you haven't heard of this, Sound of Freedom was released 4th of July weekend, so just a few weeks ago now, and it was released the same weekend as other big films such as Indiana Jones. And the reason I want to talk about this film is because it's not just any other film. There are a lot of great films out there that don't have a really deep meaning behind them. A lot of rom-coms that I love, a lot of comedies that I think are great, a lot of things that, you can put on and watch and have a good time and you're entertained. And that's the point of the film. But then there are other films, obviously, that are made for a different purpose, that have a different message, a deeper message maybe, and that stand apart and in their own category. And that's where I believe Sound of Freedom falls. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything that I'm going to say to be 100% fact, because I don't. A lot of it is speculation. A lot of it, if you've been on the internet recently, if you've heard anything about it, you've probably already heard. But I just want to give you my perspective. And if you haven't heard of it, obviously, I'm going to tell you more about it and why I think you should check it out. And so, yeah. So, Sound of Freedom is a movie based on a true story. I don't know, again, if 100% of the plot of the story, if, the storyline that it follows, if that is 100% true or not, I'm not certain. But it follows the story of this Homeland Security agent who is working on a different task, a different case, I guess is probably the better word, and ends up finding someone in America that is looking at inappropriate photos of children, selling them, basically a child sex trafficker. And that initial case and that arrest leads to him finding more information about more cases and just hundreds upon hundreds. And it's not just something that you can walk away from and feel okay letting that go. And so I don't want to give it all away, but essentially this plot unfolds into him following these cases and attempting to recover these children, return them to their families, and rescue them from the awful and unfortunate reality that is their life as a child slave, and for a majority of them, you know, a sex slave. It sucks to say, but that's the reality. And these are not young adults. Even if they were, it wouldn't be okay. But these are really young kids. We're talking like 5, 6 years old before they even should have exposure to anything of that nature. And they're being thrown off the deep end, obviously. And it's just, again, you not something that you can walk away from and feel okay walking away from it, knowing what you know. And so that's the story that it follows this agent and his attempt at freeing, these children from a particular uh, ring that goes out of Honduras and has just been widely spread across South and North America. And yeah, the focus of the story, though it is about this particular agent who does this thing, is really the children, of course, and their story. And the title, Sound of Freedom, is, again, not certain to what extent this is true or not, if this happened in real life. But at what point, when some of the children are freed, they start um, doing like hand gestures and handshakes and things like that, like when we used to do when we were kids, when we would do like patty cake and lemonade. And those, I'm not probably using the correct term for that, but when they're freed and they're all together again and they can actually be kids and do what kids do, that's what they resort to. And so the sound of freedom is the sound of them playing with each other and doing these hand games and just being together and again doing what kids do, playing games. And so that's the inspiration behind the title, at least. And so some more just factual information about the film, when it was released and relative to other things that are going on, obviously. um, Again, if you've been around recently, you probably heard a lot about this, but the film was actually originally produced in 2018, and around that same time, Disney was in communications and working on purchasing 20th Century Fox, and that deal went through about a year later in 2019. 20th Century had the film, Disney bought them, so Disney had the film, and they sort of shelved it. There's a lot of speculation as to whether or not that was on purpose, what the, you know, cause of that may have been, what their driving force behind putting it on the back burner may have been. Some people at Disney say that it wasn't actually them, that that was 20th Century before they even got it. Whatever the case may be, it didn't come out when it was produced. And so then there was a struggle to get the rights because there were people that did want to get it produced and released to the public. And so that took another year or so. And then once that finally was released, throwback, COVID happened. And we've been in and out of that circle and that bubble for past 2, 3 years now, which leads us to this past 2 weeks ago, 4th of July weekend, when it was officially released in theaters to the public for the rest of the world to see. And it was directed by Alejandro Gomez Monteverde with a budget of $14.5 million. And this is out of Angel Studios. Not a name that you're particularly familiar with, or at least I wasn't. And so the next facts that I have to share is what's going to be most shocking to you if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it and you hear all of this about how long it was shelved and how long it was kept out of the eyes of the public, then you'll be upset about that too. But was released the same weekend as Indiana Jones, a brand new movie with Harrison Ford. And the first weekend of the box office with Indiana Jones, holiday weekend, $14.5 million budget. It outdid, beat Indiana Jones and basically put Indiana Jones in its place. And so, um, I don't know how much Indiana Jones' budget was, but as a series of films with a big name actor out of a big studio, I'm sure they had a lot of money and a lot of marketing and a lot of advertising and a lot more that went into that film, not out of um, content, but just a lot more eyes were put on it initially. A lot more effort was used to get it out and market it to get eyes on it, and it basically flopped. And whether that's a testament to that film or it's a testament to how great Sound of Freedom is, I don't know. It may be a little bit of both, honestly. But the fact of the matter is that this film that was shelved, that was kept on a back burner, that nobody wanted to release, that nobody even wanted to give up, it was basically like the ugly duck that nobody wanted to touch or take care of. And then it finally does on a small budget. It's 5 years old at this point, and it's breaking records, which is outstanding. But it's important because the film tells a true story. Again, it's not, I can't guarantee that 100% of it doesn't follow a different plot line, but the concept, the idea, the guy who's leading the whole thing, this mission, it's 100% true. And so it just begs the question, like, why would people want to hide the truth? And especially something of this just density, this awful reality. And, it's kind of like what I said before, different films have different purposes. There are some that are just funny and meant to make us laugh and meant to make us have a good time. And we enjoy 2 hours, whatever. And then there are others that serve a different purpose. And sometimes it's more difficult for us to accept or want to enjoy something that tells such a harsh reality. And so obviously, I think COVID played a big role in why it wasn't released until now. Some people speculate that if it had been released when it was originally produced, that it wouldn't have done as well. It wouldn't have made the impact that it did. And I'm neither here nor there on that. I really don't know, because to me, it's just sad to think that if it was released 5 years ago, people wouldn't have cared about the children as much as they do now. That's a tough concept for me to wrap around my finger and be okay with. But the fact of the matter is, the point of this whole podcast is that it's out there and that it's telling a true story, an awful, heart-wrenching, like just soul-crushing story. And you should see it. And I don't mean to get on a soapbox and spend the entirety of my podcast talking about this film. But again, to my first point in introducing it today, is that as somebody who set out to share and to be told about different art and different creative pursuits that make the world a better place, as somebody who stepped out in pursuit of that, I would feel wrong to not share this with you guys, to sit back and pretend like I didn't see it, to not comment on it. So that's why I'm talking about it today, really, because this is what I set out to do and to find, is art and creative pursuit and films and music and everything that is making an actual difference. And so, like I said, this film didn't get the justice of the marketing and what it really deserved for what it is. There were a lot of people behind it that were trying really, really hard to get it out, and I don't want to put shame to that, and I don't want to discredit them or what they've done. But I just mean that as a world and as a society, the fact that we put this topic on the back burner, that we, prioritize something like Indiana Jones over it, I think it just says a lot about us as a society, which I think is really sad. And yeah. And so if you've known anyone or you have seen the film yourself, then you're probably aware of everything that I've shared today. If you've been on the internet recently, you probably heard a lot about it already. But if you haven't seen it, I really, 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 really want to encourage you to go see it. It's again not going to be your fun Friday night movie. It's not going to be, you're not going to walk out with a big smile on your face. Obviously, they make a lot of really good progress, and um, there's a lot of really great things that happen. It's a happy ending. However, it's again gut wrenching and awfully, awfully hard to digest. But it's very important, and it's time that we stop putting those tough conversations and that harsh reality on the back burner because it's just that harsh, because it's uncomfortable. We need to get comfortable being uncomfortable and accept the reality of things so that we can actually make a real difference. And so I will leave you guys with that. I'm sure it's still in theaters everywhere. If it's not, you can find it somewhere and watch it online, I'm sure. I actually even saw a campaign. I don't know where it is and to what extent it is, but I saw a campaign of a lot of people that attended the film and were donating tickets, so free tickets for other people to go and see it as well because of how important and impactful they believe the story and the message is. And so they just want people in seats to see it. So I highly encourage you to go check it out. Um, Again, it's a very sad story, but it's a reality that we need to address, that we need to deal with, that we need to understand. And not only that, like if we move away from the topic of what it's about, and that's the real message here, what it's about. But if we talk about just the art, the artistry behind it, the filmmaking, the acting, everything, it was really, really well done, in my opinion. And I'm no movie critic, so I definitely have opinions that I know a lot of harsher critics wouldn't agree with. But I think that this film really, they just outdid themselves, in my opinion. And especially to think that this came out in like 2018 and we're just now seeing it in 2023. And in 2023 we've already had so many outstanding films that like break boundaries of what I could expect and imagine in a film. To have something this high quality that's so many years behind, it feels really refreshing. And again, it's just really well done. So I can't say it enough, but I encourage you to go check it out. Remember to bring a box of tissues with you. I was literally crying from the first second that like I basically sat down, because it's just, it hits you. You don't even have to see anything bad happen first for you to understand the gravity of the situation and for you to be aware and feel in your soul and in your heart that something's not right. Um, so yeah, it it's definitely something that makes you think, and I think that that's a positive thing. I think I've kind of hinted at this earlier in a different conversation with one of our earlier guests, where obviously there is content for us to just absorb and enjoy and to laugh at, and it serves a purpose, but there's also that deeper level of something that lasts with you, that sticks around, that makes you think, that makes you want to talk and discuss it more. And to some extent those are um, more impactful and they have more gravity. And so this is definitely one of those. And I don't know, I saw it over a week ago and I'm still talking about it. I'm still thinking about it. That's just how great it is. And so, again, go check it out. Please go check it out. I think I would be doing a disservice as somebody who set out to talk about art that's changing the world and not talk about this. And so I hope you agree. I hope that if you've seen the film, you feel the same way about it as I do. If you haven't, I hope that this will motivate you to go check it out. Um, and that when it's all said and done, you will feel the same way as well. If you have seen it and you don't, and you know somebody else who hasn't, go encourage them um, to check it out. And yeah, I feel like I've said check it out like, I don't know, 48% of this podcast. But thank you guys for tuning in this week. I know it's a little bit different, and I hope it's not too Debbie Downer for you. But again, we kind of have to get used to having these conversations if we're really going to talk about things that are impacting the world, that are changing the world. And so, without further ado, I will let you guys go, get on with the rest of your day. Stick around next week for another episode on Wednesday with another guest. Awesome. Have a great rest of your week, guys. And don't forget to go check it out. Bye.